Senator Ron Johnson is not a fan of paying workers a living wage. He's also not a fan of the unemployment benefits. And he's going to go on a local news station to basically talk about why he's supporting a bill in Wisconsin that would end the $300 a week federal unemployment subsidy. He's going to claim, of course, like a lot of Republicans, that, oh, no, this is stopping people from going back to work. When in reality, of course, it's a myriad of different factors that are stopping people from going back to work, not really related to the $300, the extra unemployment benefits, but has actually more to do with lack of, over 500,000 people died, for example, of COVID-19. People in the food industry were hurt especially hard in the restaurant industry, as well as the meatpacking industry and places like that. Low wage work, and the fact that it is low wage to begin with is also a disincentive when you have an economy that's beginning to open up, and higher level jobs, higher paying jobs, I should say, have opened up as well. A lot of people have moved on from the restaurant industry, but none of that matters to Ron Johnson because that involves facts. In fact, here's what he said during that interview. People are literally making more money on unemployment with the plus up federal benefits than they made at their job. Businesses, and this is where he kind of gives up the ghost, right? This is where he's like, this is what's happening. Businesses cannot compete with the equivalent of $16.75 in wages provided by the government. Yeah. So now for normal people, it's like, well, okay, well, maybe you should, your jobs should pay more than the government, and that will get people back to work. But no, for him, he's like, businesses can't compete with the government, even though there's temporary benefits. So then let's get rid of the benefits faster. Of course. In fact, he said, wages are set in the marketplace and businesses pay what wages they can afford based on the competitive situation. No, that's actually wrong. I mean, look, that's how it's supposed to work in libertarian fantasy land, but we don't live in that. In the real world, the marketplace and wages are actually influenced by a lot of different factors. Very, very numerous in detail. But really, the main one that we're looking at is we don't actually live in a free market based on any of those rules. So it's not going to follow rules if those rules don't actually work in the real world. You see what I mean? We have a situation right now where corporations, these companies, are sitting on trillions of dollars in assets. 9 new billionaires as a result of COVID-19, just the vaccines. For big pharma companies, there were 9 new billionaires created this year alone. Jeff Bezos is on track to becoming the world's first trillionaire. And interestingly enough, these companies who, these restaurants that claimed that their backs would be broken by higher wages, now faced with a worker shortage, are like, oh, no, go raise the wages just a little bit. I mean, first they're trying everything they can before raising the wages. Like, we'll give you a free iPhone, or hey, come in for an interview, you get like an extra $100. We'll just give you $100 on the spot. Hey, wouldn't you kids like that? No, we'd like to get paid a living wage, thanks. Like, we don't want your crumbs. We want the dignity of work with a fair living wage that you can actually live off of. It's not that complicated. But here's the thing. A lot of these companies, in response to this, have had to go, okay, we'll raise our wages. Fine, we'll do it. Which means that they were lying about it not being able to raise the wage the whole time. Weird, I know, right? Weird. And Ron Johnson is not going to argue for higher pay for workers. He's going to argue against that. He wants less. In fact, he says that workers should accept less money, less pay, because they should be worried about inflation. Quote, increases in wage rates ratchet up and that creates permanent inflation. So you may feel good about getting a 5, 6, or 7% raise, but if general inflation is 6, 7, or 8%, that increase is just completely wiped out. By the way, for people going from the federal minimum wage, $7.25 an hour, to a $15 minimum wage, that's not 6, 7, 8%. That's like 50%. Almost. That's doubling your earnings. And I know, like, the right wingers, it's crazy. Oh my God, doubling their earnings. What are you doing? You realize it's only $30,000 a year, right? That ain't shit. Because it turns out that inflation happened anyway. Inflation has already happened. It's just the people who are working in these industries, their wages were kept stagnant for so long that the cost of everything shot up way faster, way more than they could keep up with. And so, yeah. All right. Oh, is that homeless? I got my math wrong, didn't I? It's all right. It is a huge increase. It is a doubling of the wage. This is what I was trying to say. All right. So with that said, you ever wonder, by the way, why they only talk about inflation when it comes to the workers, but not the inflation when a CEO, for example, gives himself a $6 million pay raise? They don't talk about that at all, right? And they never worried about it when prices kept rising, as I mentioned before, when wages stayed stagnant for years. Obviously, they seem to only be worried when the wealthy and corporations tend to have an increase in labor prices. And of course, you know, Ron Johnson is only concerned about that because that means he gets less in donations. But in case you are worried, by the way, about inflation, there are ways to avoid that. First of all, if you raise the minimum wage and index it to the national, if you index the national minimum wage to inflation, then you can kind of avoid that problem because as inflation goes up, so will wages. So it won't like even out. It'll work out. So it's not something that you can fix, but even so, you really don't even have to worry about that. But again, Ron Johnson and the Republican Party don't want to fix the issue. They want to keep wages artificially low, which of course has consequences, it turns out, because workers, when it gets to a certain point, workers will refuse those jobs. And that's what's happening right now. Make no mistake, this is what a general strike could look like. And even though it hasn't been organized, it turns out that we're kind of experiencing a little slice of what it would be like if there were a general strike. And you've seen the results already. Imagine everybody who was not making enough money stopped working until they were guaranteed a living wage. Everybody who wasn't making, $25 an hour. Imagine if all right, I'm not making that much money. I'm not making $25 an hour, which is what wages would be if they had kept up with productivity and inflation. I guess we'll strike. General strike. Their hair would be on fire and things would change very quickly because, again, it turns out that most of the companies that are not paying a living wage right now could have done so immediately. They can afford it. And I know some of you might be like, what about the mom and pop shops? Well, it turns out a lot of those small companies, which don't really exist as much anymore because the Walmarts of the world driving them out of business already, and the large corporations, places like Amazon, also driving them out of business. The ones that are left are actually doing a higher minimum wage. They are offering a living wage. For example, there was Dan Price, the CEO in Seattle, who, by the way, gave up a good portion of his salary and raised everybody's pay to $70,000 a year. He's not a millionaire anymore, but his workers have never been happier or more productive. He could do it. He just had to give up himself. And so, again, these companies could afford it. And another example here, there's an Atlanta-based ice cream shop who offered, who had a bunch of open positions. And they decided, well, we can't get anybody we can't find anybody to work it here. Why don't we raise our wage? Why don't we do an offer, a starting wage of $15 an hour? And what happened to Jacob Hensher is that job applications skyrocketed practically overnight. He said after raising wages, he received well over 1,000 applications for 16 open staff positions. People want to work, but they actually want to get paid well for working. And so that's the other thing. The whole idea of, people just want to be lazy. No, they want to get paid for working. They want to get paid fairly for working. And not only that, again, he's noticed in his employees, the new ones that he's hired on and the ones that he's had working, now for that new wage, They're happier. Customer service is better. They're more stable. In fact, here's what he told the Journal-Constitution. Quote, especially in the restaurant business, turnover is a big issue. The other issue is burnout. A lot of people work 2 or 3 jobs, and now they're just working 1 job. So people are showing up on time now. They're reporting to work in a better mood. Customer service is improved, things like that, which you don't always account for. True. Who knew that happy workers would be more productive and give better customer service? Oh, wait, everybody with a working brain. Yeah. And so my point is that you have these rich people that have this, and conservatives that have this reverence for the almighty stock markets. They're the ones that are driving the misery in this country. For decades, workers, regular working people, have gotten short end of the stick, told that they needed to suck it up and be happy that they have a job. I remember that. I remember going through the recession. Oh, you used to be like, happy that you have a job. You're lucky. A lot of people don't have a job. So you just take that, $9 an hour and you suck it up. Just be glad. Well, I don't think you should be happy at a job where you're mistreated, overworked, and underpaid. That's just me. But what's interesting about this change, and it happened so suddenly, is that now it seems like workers are starting to realize they're worth more than they were told. Again, throughout the entire pandemic, and it really is a game changer. They were told, you're the essential workers. You're essential. You're essential. We need you. We need you so bad. Oh my God. You're making the economy continue during this difficult time where everybody else is shut down. We need you. And yet they refused. You refused to pay these people. There's a couple places that did a nice, heroes bonus or something like that. And I forget what it is. And then they just kind of forgot about it. And then these same people who ended up working in these places and losing that bonus, guess what? They had to deal with the anti-maskers, getting treated very poorly, getting tipped very poorly by, again, this, same anti-maskers who have always shit on people who are, waiting tables and doing those kinds of jobs that they said just, months ago or weeks prior that they were so essential. And finally, these people, they got sick of it. They got sick of not being respected. And let me tell you, people who work in fast food, people, working, as busboys, cooks, direct care professionals, people who take care of people in nursing homes, some of the hardest working, least respected people out there. And I think that's wrong. We need them. They are essential. They are vital. And it's about time we treated them that way. And not the way that Ron Johnson and the rest of these rich assholes want to treat them, which is to say how he views them as lazy, worthless, unimportant trash. Well, to him, I say, I think we know who the real trash is. And maybe in your next election, your voters ought to take you out to the curb where you belong. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.